So let's see another game, another miniature from this book called Edgar Colle, Caissa's Wounded Warrior by Taylor Kingston. This game was played in 1926-27 at Hastings. The game was between Colle and Norman. I don't have any idea who was Norman and what was his level. The author opened the game saying Colle was a favorite with the British tournament organizers, even though he usually beat British players, as he quickly does here. So let's see how quickly he does it here. He starts with d4, knight f6, knight f3, e6, e3. This is what we call the Colle opening today. If there is also b3, this move here, generally it's called the Colle Zuckertort, if I remember well. With that said, d5, bishop d3, bishop e7, knight b d2, castle, castle, c5. And here we see that practically it's like a reverse Queen's Gambit, right? Because black has these two pawns in the center, white has only one. And then, of course, there is the problem of the bishop d3 in case this pawn advances here. So what is black choice? What is white choice? White choice is or you play pawn c3 to give this bishop an escape square, or you have to take, right? Because this is kind of important. In that game, Colle took on c5, bishop takes c5, e4. Also, this is very important because it practically destroys the center. It directly and immediately challenges black center. He takes e4, knight takes e4, knight takes e4, bishop takes e4. Now, this can seem strange, but what do you do here as black? For me, it's quite important because you see, if I know that Colle is a really strong player, maybe I want to bring him in the endgame and see who is really the strong player. But what is the problem here? The problem here is the following. Practically, white has a majority on the queen side. Black has a majority on the king side. Generally, the majority on the king side is very good, but if you still have the queens on the board, you cannot really use it because it could be a danger for the king, right? That he would become unprotected. Instead, this majority can advance without problems because it doesn't have to protect anything. So in this sense, I would prefer white's position here already because it can advance his majority and create a pass pawn while black still can. So how black should deal with it? Also the author of the book says in retrospect it was wiser to play queen takes d1. Yes. Rook takes d1, knight d7. So you see, this is the reason. First of all, black needs to finish the development. Second, taking away the queens from the board allows a possibility of advancing one's own majority on the king side and equalize. Otherwise, there is no equalization because white has already a better game. Okay. So what did black play here? Black played f5, which is not a great move because practically this becomes weak. Here there are some holes already, that can be exploited. And so I'm not really sure, but you see, this is the difference between a master and an amateur. The master is really careful advancing his own pawns because they cannot go back. Okay? And here it's the case. Black has created some weaknesses that white can target. So bishop d3, queen c7, queen e2, bishop d6. Again, let's realize one thing. We are at move 12 and we have still 3 pieces that have not moved at all. Every chess player should, first in his career or her career, watch the games played by Murphy. Why? Because he would learn the importance of development, the importance of giving material for gaining time and winning a game. Here, clearly, Black is violating some basic chess principles. So what does White do? White also needs to finish his development. How does he finish the development of his piece? How? That's what we need to answer over the board, right? And White thinks it's better to probably develop the bishop on b2, right? So he wants to do this move here, okay? And it's obvious that is a good move in the sense that it targets Black's territory. So what does Black plays in this position? Here, like always, there should be, in my opinion, a diagram before the actual move. Because, okay, the actual move played by Black, it's a big mistake, a blunder. But what would you play if you were Black in this position? What would be the correct continuation? So it would be good for a book to have, in my opinion, a diagram here in this position and ask Black, what are you going to do if you're Black? So put the position over the board and try to think. In the book, obviously, these two are the alternatives given, no? But it's logical. You need to develop the pieces at a certain point. We have moved 13 and it still continues to move pawn and pieces. And why? Because Black played this, e5. Why he played this? Because he wants to fork. He wants to fork White here, here, here and here, okay? But obviously White thought about that, because that's a minimum. Plus, again, we see the problem of advancing the pawn. Once you advance the pawn, you create a lot of weak squares. In this case, we could call them light color complexes, light weak color complexes, okay? Because light squares, color complexes. So what's the move played by White at this point? It's quite simple. Like in the previous game, he exploits the big diagonal that has been given to him by Black, moving his pawns. And these pawns are not good. These are kind of hanging. They are not doing really anything. What is Black doing here? Nothing. These pieces are still out of the game. So when the pieces are out of the game, we can claim at this point a temporal advantage. But in this case, it's nearly 11 points because look, 5 for a rook, 3 for a knight, and 3 for a bishop. We have 11 points of advantage just there. Meanwhile, White has these pieces that are all out and can be used and will be used to attack. As in the previous game, we can see how White attack, because again, once you create this weakness, moving the pawn, here you have a lot of weak squares that white is going to use, okay? So how does white wins? Knight g5. And now again, there is, I have continued to, in a sense, mislead maybe the viewer, thinking, oh, I need to develop, I need to develop. Yes, you need to develop, but we are at move 15. You are under attack. Developing, it's the last of your problems by this point. Because unfortunately, at this point, one must deal with the attack. One must hope that he will able, maybe giving some material to stop this attack. If he just thinks now, he wakes up, oh, I'm at move 15, I need to develop my pieces, it's a little too late, okay? And this is what happened in the game, practically. Black played the knight c6, which is a blunder. Why it's a blunder now? Because this knight is from the other side of the board, is not protecting anything. Here, is not protecting anything. So it's totally useless, okay? It's totally useless, this knight. Here. If the knight would have been here, yes, maybe it would have been great, no? But here in c6, it's kind of useless. So what should have black played? At this point, it's probably already too late, I think, but let's see what the book says. The book says h6 is a move, and play queen h5, obviously, f4, knight f7. I don't know, I think at this point it's already a little too late. Let's see what happens. Because there are not really good moves. At this point, I think the only possibility for black is to try to sack, because that knight is too powerful, it's too dangerous. And once he sack, there are exchanges to be done. And here we go. You see, in order to gain tempi, black had to give material. And now, yes, maybe he can develop this piece here, because he will have to oblige white to defend or do something. And now there is the time. But at this point, however, we can see that black had to give up a quality in order to survive. And now you say, okay, but we are on knight g6, knight g5. Why we don't play g6? Why not playing g6? Well, g6 still doesn't work. Here the continuation given by and now in the book, obviously this is called a decisive advantage for white. If black takes, obviously there is this, and white is winning, okay? But once more, notice this queen, this rook is out, this bishop is still kind of out of the game, and we still have this possibility to create a strong attack on here, and behind there is this. So knight c6 was a mistake, and now we see why, because it was too late. Move 15 to start to develop the pieces, it's definitely late. So what should white do at this point, right? How should white continue? And this is important, because seeing a game like this, we can learn to attack. So one thing one must remember is the following. Now let me remove a little all this stuff, because it can be a little distracting. We are in this position. These are the bodyguards of the king. In order to kill the king, we need to remove the bodyguard. Because if we don't remove the bodyguard, we cannot kill the king. Is that clear, right? So how should white in this position continue. Killing the bodyguard. Which moves kill the bodyguard? Knight takes h7. Boom! And notice that this move is so strong because this bishop controls this square and the queen can go here and the game is over. So black cannot afford to take on h7 because queen h5 is checkmate. Okay, so what should black do at this point? He needs to create an escape for the king, because if he doesn't create an escape for the king, it's over. And the only way to escape is moving one of the bodyguards, which creates an escape square for the king. Okay? So now you are white again. What do you do? How do you continue your attack? Well, sometimes the best way to continue is also to eliminate the big defenders. In this case, there is a big rook that needs to be taken out of the game. The disadvantage, obviously, is that bring back another piece to the defense, and white doesn't have more pieces to attack. But this is the point. Already here, we could say that white has won the game and just needs to convert, okay, to convert the material advantage in a win. And how do you do that? You continue to develop. Like I said, bishop e2. Remember, when we saw b3, we already understood. When we saw that white played this move, b3, no? We were here and white played this move, b3. We already knew that he wanted to develop the bishop to attack, okay? So that's nothing new, right? From move 12 to move 18, we finally see the development of this piece. Bishop g7, obviously, because he's trying to fight for this pawn e5. That is important. Now, if you were white, what would you do? You would try to bring another piece into the game, because there are pieces that are doing nothing, like this one. This is doing nothing, this is doing nothing, this is doing nothing. So that's the important part, right? We need to activate our pieces. And I think this is also called the Makogon of law, right? If you have a piece that is doing nothing or that is not well placed, you try to move it to a better place. And obviously you try to control a file, because the rooks are made to control the files, to enter into the game. Now, this is interesting. For example, white is winning, obviously, but how should black continue? Because, for example, we would think, oh, maybe I need to bring out the bishop in order to continue my development and move this rook, right? This rook that is out of the game. But maybe this is not the best move. Why? What could white do? Well, white could play this thing, and this move is a direct attack on this. But at the same time, and this is the scary part, the problem that I showed you before, that this square, which was created for the king to escape, is now occupied by a defender, by a bodyguard, let's say. So with this move, white is in reality threatening checkmate again. Okay, so black cannot move that bishop on d7 because he will lose it immediately and create even more advantage for white. So that's why black played a6. But again, this move, you can see it, it's thematic, right? Queen d3. Because queen d3 continue the same idea of a checkmate. There is a checkmate because this is controlled by this, and this square is occupied by a piece. So obviously black tries to remove the piece that blocks the king. What would have happened if black would have played king h7? Well, queen h3, bishop h6, rook f1, queen e7, bishop g8, boom, king takes g8, and the game is practically over, because practically the problem is all this, that this knight becomes overworked in trying to keep this, and this is the reality that black is going to face, okay? Once you remove the defenders of a king, there is obviously or a checkmate or something. So after queen d3, black tried bishop f6 to defend himself, to give a square, but it's too late because queen d5 wins the game, okay? And here the game is over. A very good game by Colle, played in 1926-27 at Hastings, a very major important tournament.